So we're gonna have a bit of fun this time around. As the year 2020 closes out, we may potentially look at some end-of-year content to round out the last 365 days worth of action. Whether it's fighter awards or overall reflections, be sure to let us know if there's anything in particular that you think could make our late December and early January content even better. That said, we're not there just yet, and with one major pay-per-view and a number of pivotal fight cards yet to go, we thought it would be fun to take a look at how the next year will play out within the UFC. So for this video, I'm going to give my take on each UFC division and who I believe will hold the championship belt by December of next year. So with that out of the way, let's dive into it. Women's Strawweight. Okay, to kick things off, let's have a look at the stacked women's strawweight division. In my opinion, this is by far and away the most interesting of the women's divisions at present. And if I'm being totally honest, this is a pretty tough one to call. Sure, the champion Zhang Weili is a formidable force at the top of the mountain, but if you ask me, I still see Rose Namajunas as the best fighter at 115 pounds right now. It's an improvement. Thug Rose, who will likely fight for the belt next time she makes the walk, is a very viable pick to win and then successfully defend the strawweight strap next year. Women's Flyweight. With one of the toughest choices now out of the way, we move on to a much easier pick. I'm not going to outright say that there is no hope for any of these flyweight contenders in the face of the bullet Valentina Shevchenko, but given what we know about this remarkable fighter's skill set, it really is difficult to pick against her. If Shevchenko has one shortcoming, it's her tendency to fight to an overly technical standard, content to ride out a strong surge of momentum for a victory on the scorecards. It's not much of a weakness though. And while fighters such as Jessica Andrade and perhaps even Zhang Weili might eventually ask questions of her, backing Valentina is something of a no-brainer. Women's Bantamweight and Featherweight. I was planning on splitting these two divisions into a pair of separate sections, but in all honesty, for me there just isn't enough of a reason to discuss the 145-pound division and its lack of rankings and structure. The biggest threat to Amanda Nunes' title reign may well come in the form of her own willingness to continue fighting. She has indeed spoken about retirement in the past, and I really wouldn't be surprised to see her bow out before the year is Shevchenko. But apart from that, I just don't see enough in the way of the technical skill and strong physical attributes needed to give Nunes major issues next year. Flyweight. In running through his first title challenger Alex Perez at UFC 255, Deiveson Figueiredo proved that he is a hugely improved fighter from the brawler who struggled to find his feet against the recently cut Jussier Formiga. During this ongoing 5-fight win streak, Figueiredo has looked nothing short of sensational, and with Demetrius Johnson completely out of the picture and Henry Cejudo now likely never to make that cut down to 125 pounds again, I like his chances at retaining his crown through 2021. As far as contenders go, Flyweight is in something of a strong spot. Guys like Brandon Moreno, Askar Askarov, and even Brandon Royval look as though they can offer a significant threat to the Brazilian. Deiveson enjoys fighting regularly, so expect about 3 defenses between now and the end of next year. Will he be up to that challenge? Who knows, but I do like his chances. Bantamweight. Indeed, he did encounter something of a frustrating setback in the form of an early loss to Aljamain Sterling, but in my eyes, Corey Sandhagen could well be the best bantamweight on the planet. Anyone who watches this channel regularly will know that I am all about fighters who bring that new tech edge to the table, and like Zabit, Ryan Hall and Israel Adesanya, I think Corey Sandhagen is doing something very interesting right now. Not only do I think that he will leave next year with that gold strap around his waist, but I also think that bantamweight could well emerge as the UFC's most talent-rich division. There is some serious potential at 135 pounds, folks. Best start taking notice now. Featherweight. With the 145-pound division comes another very tough call. Few title races in history have had as many incredibly gifted and varied talents as featherweight does at this point in time. And while the sharks that circle include the likes of Brian Ortega, Zabit Magomed Sharipov, Yair Rodriguez, Calvin Kattar, and the former champion Max Holloway, I firmly believe that Alexander Volkanovski is the best fighter of the lot. Perhaps that won't be a popular pick, but this guy has levels to his game, subtleties and degrees of nuance that make him an incredibly unique talent. I'm all in on this city kickboxing product, and I expect him to make it out of 2021 belt in hand. Lightweight. Okay, so we finally arrive at the lightweight division, and as you would expect, this was without a doubt the toughest pick of the lot. For this division, a lot does ride on the intentions of its champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, If Khabib does return and say fight the winner of January's Poirier vs McGregor 2, I expect that fight to happen in the second half of next year and for him to end the year as the champion, whether he vacates the belt or not. However, if for a moment we assume that Nurmagomedov is done, I'm honestly backing Conor McGregor to thoroughly beat him at UFC 229. I still think that Conor will rise to the top of this division if the current champ does in fact stay retired. Welterweight. Welterweight is a very strong division, make no mistake. Within it lies prospects that are extremely varied and interesting. And who knows, perhaps next year we'll see the injection of a budding superstar in Khamzat Chimaev if he can in fact get the job done against Leon Edwards this year. However, for my money, none of these 170-pound fighters has enough to take out Kamaru Usman. I just think that Usman, as a technical master, as a physical specimen, he just brings too much to the table to be beaten by any of these contenders. I've been watching as the Nigerian Nightmare has honed his craft fight by fight, and looking down the rankings, I just don't see the fighter who has the attributes needed to beat him just yet. As far as the men's divisions are concerned, this is definitely the pick that I'm most confident in. Now, I know MMA is a crazy sport and predictions are for suckers, but let's just see what happens. Middleweight. This pick was a little sketchy for me. I don't know what Israel Adesanya has planned for 2021, whether that's a move up to 205 to either fight for the belt or take on Jon Jones' defense. I think that the division may get locked down to some extent while Stylebender pursues either champ status or the scalp of Jon Jones. So I suppose in making a prediction, I'm pretty much predicting how Israel's next defense will go, because as much as I'd like to see some movement at 185 pounds, we're probably going to see an absent champion in the year's second half, with maybe the creation of an interim championship belt for the contenders to fight amongst themselves for. No one really jumps off the page at middleweight to me, but I reckon Robert Whittaker will be involved in one way or another. Light heavyweight. Okay, so this is where things do get truly messy. Jan Blachowicz currently holds the 205-pound strap. Do I think that he can fight off the active light heavyweight contenders such as Glover Teixeira, Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes, Alexander Rakic, and even Jiri Prochazka? Sure. But the looming presence of Jon Jones and the potential for the insertion of Israel Adesanya makes this one a very tricky call. I do believe that Adesanya will fight at 205 pounds, and if he does in fact fight Blachowicz, then yes, I could see him winning. I think Jones is sitting on the sidelines and waiting to see what happens in that fight, to be honest. If Israel wins, expect Adesanya versus Jones to close out the year. A lot of this is dependent on the decisions of Jones, Adesanya, and the UFC. So to put it simply, I'm picking Israel Adesanya, unless he faces Jon Jones, in which case I'm taking Jones. If neither man fights at 205 pounds, give me Blachowicz, or perhaps even Rakic or Prochazka. I honestly don't know. Just expect light heavyweight to be a massive mess for the next 365 days. Heavyweight. And finally, we arrive at the most historically significant division in the sport, the heavyweights. Again, like the last two divisions, I see the movement of some of the sport's biggest superstars as having a major effect on this division's health. If Jon Jones does in fact move up to take on Stipe, that's unfortunately going to hold up the rightful number one contender Francis Ngannou tremendously. But to be honest, as much as I could sit here and tie myself in knots thinking about the various permutations of this messy situation, I'm just going to nail my colours to the mast of Francis Ngannou and predict that he just continues knocking everyone out in brutal fashion. And that'll just about do it for the video, folks. Who do you think will be the champion in each of these divisions by December of next year? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Let's get a real discussion going. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to leave a like on this video before subscribing to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. And as always, thank you for watching.